myself, Rotaract, past president, Vincy P. In regards to National Doctors Day, we're gonna have a quick interview section with Dr. Shiva Prakash Srinivasan. Welcome, Doctor. Happy
Hi.
Doctors Day, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell a few words about yourself to know better?
So, as you've already introduced me, I've done my medicine and finished my psychiatry both from India and in the United States. And so right now, basically most of my work pertains to providing and developing appropriate clinical services and research protocols in the care of young people with mental health issues, right? And so we not only have a safe space called the rYMs, which is the Resource Center for Youth Mental Health by SCARF. We also have a separate youth mental health program wherein we are involved in a lot of educational activities, working with colleges, working with organizations such as yourself, which is the Rotaract, to provide education and to basically help reduce the stigma around mental health issues.
Yeah, okay, Doctor. That was nice, Doctor. And can you say some few words about your NGO?
So, SCARF or Schizophrenia Research Foundation has been in the field of mental health for more than about 35 years, Sharda Menon. And since then, it has been headed by many members, including psychiatry. And one of the most important things is, even though we work with persons with severe mental illnesses, our target is to somehow reduce the burden associated with mental health issues. And so we work on both ends of the spectrum, namely both prevention, wherein we are targeting the youth in terms, not only the youth, but even the lay public, educating and empowering them, but also working with persons who have chronic mental health issues, providing rehabilitation care and appropriate medical care as time goes by, right? So, as you would know, SCARF is one of the collaborating centers for mental health training and education with the WHO. And so we've had a share of recognition.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And fine, Doctor, as a general viewpoint.
Well, I that it is good or bad. I will just take the perspective of a mental health professional and probably share the idea that this pandemic has had huge costs, right?
Yes.
There is, of course, the human cost that people are experiencing. There is the loss of loved ones related as India, right? That those numbers are really humongous, right? But on the other hand, there is also a huge social cost. People are experiencing difficulties, whether it's their own financial status. When we talk about young people, one of the key things that we need to do is engage with other individuals. And this social distancing, which should actually be just physical distancing, the 6 feet distance is more important than the not talking to anybody else, right? So that is having an impact on the young people. And of course, academics, unpredictability of the academic situation, the work situation, all these is having its own cost on young people's health and most definitely on the mental health and well-being of all individuals around.
Yes, Doctor. and there is some mentality of people that wearing scarf is a big thing for them. Is there any ability to take care of ourselves?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, doctor. As our Indians are new to wear a mask, there are people are feeling disgusting of wearing a mask, and many of them saying, "Ah, no, we can't wear a mask for a long time." What is the actual necessity of wearing a mask, doctor?
Okay. As has been said multiple times over the world over, right? The wearing of the mask is not just an indicator, or it is not just a protection for one's own self. It is also a protection for the community around you, right? There is this huge talk about what we would call as the community spread, right? Which is an infected individual is spreading it to other people. Now, we realize that in a country like India with such huge density of population, it may not be possible for us to just isolate ourselves. Even if we try to isolate ourselves, we are going to be in contact with other individuals who will be in contact with other individuals. So wearing a mask is basically an important target for us to protect ourselves and the people around us. So I know it is a huge burden. It is not something that we are comfortable with. And I also recognize that it is terribly uncomfortable in the sense that, for example, I wear glasses and every single time I breathe out, my glasses get fogged up.
Yeah, that's a big problem with people who are wearing glasses.
Yeah, I don't know about that pain.
Right. So, I know it's a burden, but then I'm sure as intelligent young individuals, we'll figure out some way to balance the fogging of our glasses with the necessity of wearing the mask.
Yes, doctor. Okay, fine, doctor.
Right.
Let's go for our main session of questions. Yes, doctor. And so far, the mental health issues related to quarantine, doctor. What are the mental health issues?
So, even though we can split the mental health issues that we are seeing during the quarantine into two parts. Okay. So one is the part where people who have pre-existing mental health issues. These could be illnesses such as depression, anxiety, persons with schizophrenia, persons with obsessive compulsive disorder, persons with substance use disorders, right? So we have individuals who have pre-existing mental health issues. And what we know is that for most of these conditions, social connectedness is an important positive factor, protective factor in the prevention and prevention of progression of mental health issues. And with social distancing, which actually should be physical distancing again, we notice that there is an increase in the expression of either depression or anxiety. Persons with substance use disorders have not had access to substances. So there are increasing cases of alcohol withdrawals and related complications. Right now, we are also noticing a lot of domestic violence and so on. So what is important to recognize is that persons with mental health issues tend to have worsening of mental health issues during periods of such stresses. Now, on the other end of the spectrum are individuals who do not have mental health issues. And what we notice over there is a general sense, like we discussed, of unrest, of uncomfortableness, right? And that introduces a sense of despair. Lots of people talk about even the mere fact of I'm not able to go out to buy groceries, right? That is it is terribly restricting, right? We also have people who talk about boredom, right? Which is right now I can actually experience 24 hours in a day, but I don't know what to do with the 24 hours in a day because previously it was structured and now it is open. right?
Yes.
And of course, there is the fear which is there in all of us. Part of it has been actually worsened by our inability to communicate with the people, right? So the loneliness and the fear of what might be going on with somebody else. There are people who live in the city, but their families live in the second-tier cities or in villages. Especially when they need to be in contact with each other, right?
Yes, doctor.
Okay,
doctor. Yes, sir.
Problems. Yeah.
So, okay, doctor. So far, you have said that mental issues related to quarantine, but what does actual depression means, doctor? People are confused with the actual depression.
Okay. So, so we would like to think about this thing. We all experience emotions, and broadly, if you think, there are 4 basic emotions: happiness, sadness, fear, and anger, right? And these are emotions which, as human beings, we experience all of them. Now, clinical depression is slightly different from just plain emotional ups and downs, right? Clinical depression is something which we think of as something which has either an increase in intensity, or so the intensity of sadness, let's assume. It's like somebody has turned up the volume on the sadness button so that people do not experience anything else other than that, right? So there is no experience of any other emotions. There is intensity of sadness, but they do present with other symptoms also. For example, symptoms of thoughts. So there is a sense of helplessness. Nobody is able to help me. Nobody will be able to make me feel better. There is a sense of hopelessness. Nobody will, my life will not get any better. So there is that sense of despondency in the head. There is a sense of worthlessness, which is people, maybe I should not be liked. Maybe I've done something wrong. There is a sense of guilt, right?
Yes.
There are biological features. So changes in sleep, changes in appetite, changes in energy level of the individual. And of course, in thoughts, there is also the thoughts about death and dying, the preoccupation about death and dying. And of course, in terms of behaviors, there are the very common problems, what we talk about as social withdrawal. So one is, there is physical distancing, which has been implanted upon us, but even there is in depression or clinical depression, what we would call as major depressive disorder, there is a sense of social withdrawal, not wanting to engage with anybody else.
Okay, doctor. Okay, fine, doctor. And another question, does other countries' approach and India's approach are same in treating a depression?
So, broadly, I would say yes. In terms of treatment, the country's approach, I mean, broadly, depression is. Now, there might be other limitations which we need to keep in mind. The first and foremost is the availability of mental health professionals. As per some of the last census, we had close to 4,500 psychiatrists for a population of 1.3 billion, right? Which is highly, how would I say, we are severely understaffed, so to say. When we look at trained clinical psychotherapists, right? Again, we are looking at huge deficits in the need as compared to the supply of mental health professional or mental health, right? Okay. So I would say that on the whole, the treatment doesn't differ. But what might differ is the kind of services that can be provided. The other important thing is sometimes, or most of the time, what we have noticed is depression doesn't typically manifest itself in psychiatrist's office. It would manifest itself in a general physician's office. So individuals would come in with symptoms of body aches or just plain insomnia, right? And those may never come to see the psychiatrist at the next level. They still have symptoms and elements of depression which can be addressed at a primary care physician level. So our sensitization needs to be a little bit more, which is what I think you guys are doing.
Okay, so far, what are the available facilities which people must be aware of this depression, doctor? As you said, the primary stage we can find this, right? So what are the facilities available to treat or treat depression?
Okay. So when you talk about facilities, I think you're thinking about the modalities of treatment. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes,
what are the kinds of treatment?
People can get, doctor.
Okay. So, okay. When we talk about the varying modalities of treatment for for an illness such as depression, we need to keep in mind that there are a number of things that are required. So we have something known as the biopsychosocial model of depression, wherein there are components of biology, there are components of psychology, and there are components of social changes which are required, right? So in terms of management, biologically, what we need to recognize is that there are a number of medications which are available, which when used appropriately and with understanding of how the, how do I say, effects might be, the side effects might be, with a complete discussion. Some of these medicines show significant effect in helping improve depressive symptoms in people who have what you would call as clinical depression. Now, that is not sufficient. Like we talked about it, there are biological symptoms, but there are also psychological, thought-related symptoms, right?
Okay.
And that is where we need psychological services. There are a number of approved therapies which are extremely helpful in addressing either mild to moderate depression or are extremely useful in addition to medications to provide treatment for moderate to severe depression. And for example, there is something known as cognitive behavioral therapy. There is something known as interpersonal therapy. And these therapies are dependent on the kind of problems that the person presents with.
Yes,
right?
doctor.
So it is not a one size fits all. It is it has to be tailor-made to the needs of the individual as per their problems. Now, regarding social changes, right? The first and foremost thing over there is reducing stigma around mental health issues and especially depression. There is evidence to say that close to 1 in 3 individuals could experience one episode of major depression at some point of time in their lives, right? Which is a very big number. And most of us are expected to just power through it somehow, without necessarily getting the help which could possibly help us, right? So reducing stigma about mental health issues, talking about mental health issues is essential for us to create an environment where we can have more people who need help actually seek out help. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, doctor. And as you said, 3 out of 1 are experiencing depression. Does the treatment for depression is done for everyone in India? I mean, all the people are getting this perfect treatment or something like that, doctor? Because we have knowledge that only big shots will get depression and they will go for treatment. But we were not aware that some people who are middle class or in below poverty line are in depression, but they are not getting treatment, and they are overcoming it naturally.
And keep this in mind that the way we have understood depression at this point of time, and more scientific knowledge is contributing to this, is that it is not a question of affluence. Just as we know that diabetes no longer is just an illness of the affluent. Diabetes can happen to anybody. Similarly, depression as a biological illness can happen to anyone, right?
Okay.
And in an ideal situation, in an ideal world, what we also know is that when people have a problem and they seek help for it, they are able to get better sooner, especially in terms of illnesses such as depression. People do tend to get sooner and their functional recovery is faster. It is possible that some individuals who experience depression may never get treatment, but they still get better over a period of time.
Yes.
But it also means that they lose that significant period of time suffering through an illness, and it's not that they suffer alone. Invariably, their family, their society also suffers along with them.
Yes, doctor.
Now, in an ideal world, yes, to give treatment to every single individual.
Yeah. Okay, doctor.
But unfortunately, we don't live in such an ideal world, but we are moving towards it primarily by helping improve knowledge and improve what we would call as help seeking.
Okay, doctor. Fine, doctor. And there is a mirage that depression leads to suicide. Are depression and suicide are associated with anything?
So, like I mentioned before, suicidal thoughts are commonly seen in individuals with depression. But what we need to keep in mind is suicide or acts of suicide or acts of self-harm are in and of itself an independent problem, right? For example, we know that about 10% of individuals with depression will at some point of time in their life attempt suicide, right? But what we also know is other mental health issues, for example, bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, the risk is slightly higher in those things, right? Now, if we were to approach this from a different angle, if we were to take individuals who have attempted to harm themselves, what we will notice is that while a significant percentage of them will have mental health issues, most attempted self-harm are not associated with persistent mental health issues, but may be associated with immediate life stresses.
Okay, doctor.
Right? So, saying everybody who's attempted suicide has depression might not be true. On the flip side, saying everybody who has depression is going to attempt suicide might also not be true. We have to address each one of this as a separate problem and give it the importance. Because acts of self-harm, acts of death by suicide are extremely traumatic events for everybody, for the people witnessing it or the people who are reading about it and so on. For example, recently there was the death of a fairly famous personality, and that has been a traumatic event for most young people, given that we assumed that he was an individual who was living within quotes whatever a perfect life would be, right? So keep this in mind that it cannot be just, so depression and suicide have to be addressed as separate issues.
Okay, doctor. And how one can diagnose that if they are in depression, doctor?
Okay. So rather than going ahead and making a diagnosis of depression, of course, there are a number of online tests which you can take, which will tell you, which will basically go through a set of symptoms, and they will ask you how you evaluate on those symptoms, and it will probably give you a score and say you have elements of depression, right? More importantly, I would rather say this. If we have a fever, right, we wouldn't directly go ahead and start ourselves on an antibiotic thinking that this is the cause of my fever, right? We would take, whenever there is suffering, asking for help is the first step that we need to engage in, right?
Okay.
And typically, many of us think, oh, this is just sadness, right? But when the sadness starts affecting a person's functioning, and when we talk about young people, we talk about whether it's their occupational functioning. When we talk about young people, how are they interacting with their peers? When we talk about young people, we are also thinking about, how do I say, academic functioning, right? And when these areas of functioning have started getting affected, it is time for the person to seek help. Now, it could be a counselor, it could be a friend, it could be a trusted adult, it could be a psychiatrist, right? But all in all, our job is to first identify the distress. As individuals. When I'm not feeling good, it is all right to ask for help. That is one of the key things that I hope anybody takes away from this.
Okay, doctor. Fine, doctor. And a few tips for a healthy mental state of mind, and some other addressing depression other than medications. What are the other possible things to get away from depression rather than medications, doctor?
Okay. So when we talk about maintaining a positive frame of mind, right?
Yes.
A few things are required. And one of the first things that I'd like to emphasize over here is taking care of your physical health, right? A healthy body has a healthy mind, right? And that is an important thing to keep in mind. None of us feel particularly enthusiastic and exuberant the day that we have a cold. So trying to ensure that we take good care of our health, and that could be something as simple as spending 45 minutes of brisk physical activity every day, right? It does not matter how old you are, even though young people think that they need less sleep. 6 to 8 hours of proper sleep will enable us to maintain our emotional health in a very good way, right? The next important thing is diet. Though there is no specific diet which is supposed to be helping in reducing depression or whatever, eating healthy, balanced diet, keeping in mind the amount of physical activity that you get, is going to help you generally feel better, right? So from the physical angle, taking care of physical activity, exercise, sleep, and how do I say, appropriate diet would be a good starting point. We talked about social aspects of depression, right? So having a set of friends, people that you can confide to, right? People that you can share your thoughts with is an important place. Sorry?
Trustworthy persons of our life.
Trustworthy people, right? Would be a great place for us to start having social contact. Now, many a time our social contacts are dependent on the number of friends I've got either on Facebook or Instagram, right? And really scrolling down either Facebook or Instagram, I've got nothing against them, because they do help us stay in contact with people with whom we may not be able to stay in contact otherwise. and assuming that that is their life, seeing snippets, individual photographs, and interpreting and extrapolating it to the rest of their life is not a great way of establishing friendships. Friendships have to be maintained preferably face to face.
Yes, doctor.
But even otherwise, a phone contact, a phone chat would be more appropriate rather than just interpreting it from what we see online, right? So social health is essential.
Okay.
Now, the other aspect of this is definitely psychological health. And for this, as mentioned previously, having a trustworthy friend or a confidant would generally give us a space to vent our thoughts. But in addition to that, meeting a psychologist or a counselor or a therapist as and when required to help address some of our emotional turmoils that we are going through would be really essential. There are some skills which we can practice which are pertaining to mindfulness, which would help us experience emotions, especially in scary times such as these, without necessarily becoming overwhelmed by them. So, so definitely there are a number of skills that we can use to maintain, how do I say, a positive frame of mind.
Okay, doctor. Fine, doctor. And that was a full overview of depression and this for this lockdown and for the rest of the life. And it sounds very, very interesting to learn about depression as well, doctor.
Right.
And
right.
I can see there are a lot many things in depression than what we are thinking right now. So depression is something different from our angle or our perspective, actually. Yes, doctor. And that was nice having you for this quick interview session, doctor. And thanks for sparing your time with us for this quick interview, doctor. For any other words for us, doctor, or for the people who are watching this?
I will say be mindful of your emotions, try to have fun. You've been given the time, so try to make the best of it, but don't push yourself to just get everything done in the moment.
Okay,
right?
doctor. Yes, doctor.
So have fun and ask for help when you need.
Yeah, sure, doctor. Sure. Thank you so much, doctor. You too.